Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be talking about how to improve micro. So I've had several people asking me about something akin to this, and so here it is. Here's the video. So I'm going to do a two video section here. We're going to do a micro video here and a macro video. So I have covered some of this material quite a lot throughout the history of the channel, but I decided I'd bring it all like up to date, all in one place, all in one guide right here. So special thanks to Tiny. He donated a while ago for a critical thinking video. It was he didn't really have any specific specifications for terrible phrasing there about what he wanted, but this is something that a lot of other people I think have donated for in terms of like a laning guide or critical thinking, how to dodge skill shots, how to team fight properly. All of that's going to be something that we're going to cover in here. So I think a lot of people have donated. I think Dylan may have donated for a team fight video. I tried to go back through at the donations and see, but I just couldn't hunt it all down according to keywords, unfortunately. So thank you very much if you donated for any kind of critical thinking type of video. I think this two video series here with micro and macro will do the trick for you. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go into what is micro, what does that mean, how is it different from macro, and then 3 key tips like understanding the game state, improving your laning, and then dodging and hitting skill shots. Okay, so improving your laning also has, one of those has team fighting in it. I think it's, we'll cover some team fighting as well in there. So if this is your first time watching my video, you can find a link to this Google Doc in the description. You can also find timestamps if you want to jump around to your favorite parts. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So what is micro? So micro is a term. Micro means smaller and macro means larger. So that's just kind of what those terms mean in a broader sense. But in terms of League of Legends, micro is a term that many players use to describe individual character controls. So how you control your character, how you make your decisions, and what you're going to do with your abilities, how you're going to position in team fights. All of that stuff is micro. So that includes how to get a high creep score, how to trade in lane, hitting and dodging skill shots, and positioning in team fights. These are all things that would fall under the micro purview. It's often distinct but related from macro, which are the larger concerns. So interpreting the minimap, shot calling, rotations, and itemization. All of these are micro. So anything that's not necessarily related to like step-by-step, moment-to-moment interactions with your individual character. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about ways to improve your micro here. All right, because, you know, one myth in terms of it is you have to have like super fast reaction speeds. You have to have like super high APM, actions per minute, to be able to do anything, right? Like you'll hear all these, great luminaries of our time, like LS in a video talked about this wiggle, which I've mentioned on the channel before, where you have to like click back and forth like really fast just to make your character wiggle. So you get this extra like, couple hundredths of a second reaction time over your enemy because they don't know what you're going to do. Like that type of stuff, yeah, maybe at like the super top end, like, the difference between like a good pro and an amazing pro, maybe those things matter. But for the vast majority of the population, you can actually improve your micro quite a lot through much simpler things. And a lot of it comes down to understanding what you're doing and like being prepared for what's going to happen before it happens. And that's the key thing. A lot of these pros and a lot of really good players, they don't dodge stuff seemingly instantly or have lightning reflexes because there's random events happening to them and they're responding randomly. They respond that fast because they are watching for that specific skill shot. They are ready for it and they know exactly what they're going to do when that person fires that skill shot at them. They know where they're going to flash or where they're going to juke or how they're going to interact with it. So it's not that they react instantly to random things, is that they see it coming before they actually do it. And that's the key. That gives you so much faster reaction time because you're ready. You know what you're going to do. You have a plan. Okay, so that's what we're going to be building to in this. Well, how do you develop that? How do you know what's coming? How do you have a plan? How do you prepare for things down the line? How do you foresee them? Okay, so first of all, you have to understand the performance of each team in order to make quality micro decisions. So there's not a very simple answer I can give you as to what you should always do when you play Ahri or what you should always do when you play Blitzcrank or Thresh or whatever. It depends greatly on what's going on in the game. So it can depend on the composition as well, what your goals are as a team, which we'll talk about here in a second. And it can also depend on who's strong on the team and how they are positioned. So a lot of that goes into it. So there's not a simple answer, but there's a simple sort of thought process you can go through to improve your understanding of a game state. And I've got that outlined for you here in just a little bit. So it includes not only compositional considerations, so who's the focal point of the team, who is probably going to be the largest threat on each team, but also just who's strong, like who has a lot of kills, who has hit certain power spike levels, who has completed key items, that type of stuff. So sometimes this can lead to some difficult decisions. So for example, just imagine that you're a Sona and consider the following. You have a 5-0 Katarina who's just hanging out on the back line, on her back line, just sort of sitting and waiting, not doing anything yet. All right, you have an 0-3 Vayne on the enemy team who's attacking your 3-0 Maokai, right? So she's just sitting there beating on your Maokai with auto attacks. You have a 2-0 enemy Sejuani that is beating on your 4-0 Jinx. Okay, so who do you ult as Sona? Which decision do you make? You could ult Vayne and stop her from beating on your Maokai, and then maybe Maokai will be able to stick to her and kill her better. You could ult the Sejuani to peel the Jinx off. Or, and probably the best option, is hold your ultimate for Katarina, because those other two are not posing a major threat because they don't have a lot of kills. So Sejuani does have kills, but she doesn't do a lot of damage by herself. It's slow, contained damage, right? The Vayne is not going to be doing a ton of damage to Maokai. He's probably got a few tank items by this point, and she's going to be behind. So she's probably not going to kill Maokai that quickly. Jinx should be able to tear through that Sejuani because she's going to have more items. This is slow, predictable damage, and as Sona, with your W, you can deal with slow, predictable damage. You just keep healing and shielding people. So compositionally, that's not a problem with Sona. The problem is if they spike people out and someone just gets evaporated before you have a chance to heal them a lot. That's the problem with Sona. Okay, so since you kind of understand what's going on, you need to hold your ult for that Katarina, because you can probably get your team to win the fight just by spamming W and just hitting either Vayne or Sejuani with green power chords over and over again. Okay, so even though, you know, traditional wisdom might say, well, peel for your AD carry, or, you know, hit the biggest threat, who some people might think is Vayne, but in this specific situation, you don't need to peel your AD carry with your ult because she's fine, most likely, in this very isolated scenario. And you don't need to hit the Vayne because Maokai is probably going to be fine with just some light heals. However, if Katarina gets in there and you don't have your ultimate, you're going to have no way to deal with her. Like, you can exhaust. You can use your green shot on her if you want, but the best way is to save your ult to make sure you hit her, because she's the big threat, okay? Because she's the one that has all the gold, and just as a character, Katarina can snowball out of control and get resets in fights. So she's the big threat. Now, if it changed around, and let's say that Vayne is 5-0 and Katarina's 0-3, then you should probably ult the Vayne if you get a clean shot on her, and then save your save a green power chord plus exhaust for Katarina. So you're going to have to ult that Vayne because she's going to tear through the Maokai if she's 5-0 probably, and then you're just going to have to make do with what you have, which is going to be the exhaust and the green power chord for Katarina when she goes in. Now, if Vayne has Quicksilver Sash, if you notice that, and she can just cleanse your ultimate, or if she took cleanse for some reason, the summoner spell, or if her if her support has Mikhail's, it doesn't matter because they can just Mikhail's your ult anyways. But she has Quicksilver Sash or the summoner spell cleanse, then you should use it on Katarina because you know that Vayne's just going to cleanse it off, so it's not going to matter. So all of this changes. You know, it changes according to what the score is in the game, and it changes according to which item somebody has. So if Vayne has that Quicksilver Sash, it's not worth using crowd control on her as much because she's just going to get rid of it. So how you should act in a fight changes dramatically based upon the performance of your team. And this is why it is crucial that you do pay attention to your team. I think that's some of the worst advice that's out there on YouTube, is that people say, you know, will say just mute all and don't pay attention to what other people are doing. Pay attention to you. The thing is, it matters. It matters what other people are doing, and it matters what the score is. Now, you don't have to rage at them. You can just look at the data analytically and just see how it's going. Okay, how's that Riven doing top lane? Oh, she's down 0-3 to the Jace. Well, that's going to be a big problem. So you might need to itemize into a little bit more armor, or just recognize if Jace shows up to a fight, you need to save your exhaust for him, or any kind of crowd control that you have for him, because you're paying attention, because you understand Jace is big. That doesn't mean you have to rage at Riven and call her a noob or whatever because she's having a bad game. But it does mean you can't just stick your head in the sand. If you're trying to really get better as a player, you shouldn't just stick your head in the sand and only pay attention to you, okay? Because it does matter. And, you know, even aside from itemization, if you see that, you know, this goes to macro, which we'll talk about in the next video, but if you see things like this person always splits and they're just not going to group as a team, or you see that, okay, this jungler missed smite really badly on this dragon, and so maybe we shouldn't trust him with the next dragon. Maybe we should make sure their jungler's under control before we try the next dragon. Or maybe this person doesn't hit a lot of skill shots, so I shouldn't count on them to hit the skill shots. Like, all of this matters. You need to take notice of this, and you need to adjust your play. But we'll talk about that more in the macro. But the bottom line is you need to pay attention. You need to understand the game state. You can't just mute all and just stick your head in the sand and just play the same way every game and expect to dramatically improve. You have to change with the game state. And in order to understand the game state, you have to understand what's happening to other people and in other lanes. So you need to tab, you need to pay attention to what's going on. Okay, so here's some questions that are important to ask yourself when you're trying to analyze a game state and figure out what you should do. Okay, so number one, who is strong on your team? Okay, so not just like who compositionally is strong, like, okay, we have a Twitch and a Katarina on our team, and not even necessarily just kills, like, okay, who has the most kills on our team? Because you might have a, I don't know, a Nunu that has 6 kills on your team, but maybe the strongest person is actually the 2 and 6 Vayne because she scales much harder and she has much more impactful items, okay? So in other words, like a Twitch that has 3 items is still really strong, even if he's 2 and 8. So it might look like, oh my god, how is this Twitch, like, 2 and 8 and he's just mowing down our team? Well, it doesn't matter how you got the gold. As long as you have gold and you're buying items, that's all that matters. You're powerful. The game doesn't like count some gold more than other gold just because it was earned through kills. You know, the Twitch may be strong because his team has taken more towers than you. Maybe he has like 50 more CS than your 80 carry. So maybe he's down in kills 2 and 8, but maybe he has a lot of creep score. Maybe his team has taken a lot of towers. I mean, it could be any number of things. Maybe he started with, well, Targon's Brace wouldn't give him that much more gold. I mean, he could have run a Cole. There's any number of ways that someone who has a bad score can still be really impactful, and this catches people off guard all the time. They're like, oh my god, I didn't know he was that impactful, because they're just looking at the score. They're not looking at the items. So you need to look at the items and not the score. And I went ahead and linked to an older video that I have that explains what scaling is. If you're not sure sort of what scaling is, it breaks it down for you right here. And it should start, the link that I had here, it should start like right about where scaling is. What is scaling? 26 whatever. If we go to it, I'll just watch the video. I explain it pretty well, but I can just get into the Google Doc here and just see sort of what scaling is here. So a champion, you know, something, this is how you would define scaling, something that scales well. The champion gains more damage through very high ratios on abilities. So if it's something that has a high ratio, like a Syndra, an Orianna, or an Annie, that's going to scale much better than something like a Lulu or a Karma that's going to have a much lower AP ratio. That's why, you know, something like a Lulu middle is going to get outscaled by a Talia or a Orianna, Annie, Syndra, all that stuff's going to outscale. So Lulu middle is really a utility pick that's not that great right now, but if you were going to pick it, it would be for a really important mid-game power spike, but it's going to get outscaled. Champion kit synergizes very well with expensive items. So at the time when I made this, Infinity Edge plus Hurricane was really powerful. Now it's Infinity Edge plus Static Shiv plus Rapid Fire Cannon. So the champion is really slot efficient is what you would describe that as. So if they buy a lot of big ticket items, that means that they're going to be able to invest more gold in their items. So it's going to take them longer to get those items because they're very expensive. But because they have so much extra gold in those items, then they're going to be more powerful late game because those items are just going to have bigger, badder stats. So for example, like a 6 item, you know, Janna is not going to be as powerful just sort of one-on-one as a 6 item like Twitch or something like that, because Twitch's items are much more expensive, right? Like Twitch is paying 3,400 for an Infinity Edge, Janna's paying, you know, 2,100 for Redemption. So it makes sense in terms of like individual power that, you know, the more gold someone has tied up in their items, often the stronger they're going to be. The champion's kit can add extra damage, which can be scaling. So, you know, some examples would be like Twitch's Q gives a lot of extra attack speed. Caitlyn's headshot mechanic, Janna's shield, Lulu's whimsy, champions that build ardent sensor, redemption scales really well with team fights. So there are a lot of Sona with all the plus healing and shielding, and Athene's Unholy Grail. All of these scale very, very well because their kits are uniquely powerful as the game goes on. Tristana with her Q, where she gets like 110% extra attack speed. You know, a lot of the top end anything scales really hard, right? So like top end AD carry, top end supports, top end top laners. When you think about Fiora, the reason she's so powerful is that she has scaling true damage based on her AD in her passive, and that's what makes her cut through tanks so fast. So champions that have kits that add extra multipliers to their damage or their ability to heal and shield are going to be powerful. If the champion becomes very difficult to kill, so like a Maokai, a Nautilus, a Poppy, those are kind of old examples, but contemporary would be like Maokai, Jarvan, Sejuani, Gragas. That's considered a form of scaling. So if they just get so many tank items that just stack really well with health, so the Cinderhulk people who get like Warmogs become almost impossible to kill at some point. And so that's a form of scaling. And the champion excels at creating map pressure and taking objectives. So it could be like Jinx, Ryze, Cassiopeia. So just things that take Barons really quickly. That's a form of scaling. Things that take towers really quickly, like Jax, Tryndamere. Things that split push waves really quickly are a form of scaling. So all of these are different aspects to a way that a champion can get stronger as the game goes on. Champions that don't scale very well will typically have really high base damages, low AP ratios, and a lot of times they'll lack other stuff. Like they might lack mobility, they might lack sustained damage. Maybe all their damage is loaded up front in an all-in burst combo, kind of like an Annie. So those champions are not going to scale as hard as other champions. And it just takes a little bit of practice. And just looking at tier lists, like my tier list for each patch, but then other people's tier lists as well, just to kind of get a good idea of like what's hot, what's doing very well. And a lot of champions that are up there are champions that scale really well. Okay, so what's strong on your team? What's strong on the enemy team? Okay, so understanding, all right, so, you know, if we have something like Lulu, Kog'Maw bottom, and then in the jungle we have, I don't know, a Sejuani, top lane we have a Darius, and mid lane we have an Orianna. Well, the focal point of that team is going to be Kog'Maw. And so, you know, if that's your team, you need to try to protect that Kog'Maw as much as you possibly can. If you're on the enemy team, you should be thinking, okay, if we can just kill Kog'Maw, we're probably going to win. Like, Darius and Sejuani do some damage, obviously. Like, Orianna can do some burst damage. But the real story is Kog'Maw. If you can take out the Kog'Maw, then you can win. So what you want to do is identify who's strong on their team, try to shut that person down, and then who is strong on your team, and try to help that person out. Now, it doesn't always go by the playbook. I mean, if that Kog'Maw goes 0-4 and Orianna is 7-0, then all of a sudden the priorities have to shift over to Orianna. So on paper, it looked like Kog'Maw was the strongest big threat, but now Orianna has so many kills that she could one-shot almost anybody, and so she has become the big threat. And so it's important to have these ideas in your mind going into the game. Okay, here's the game plan, but then be able to adjust as well as the game unfolds to reflect the game state. Okay, so understanding your win condition is important also. That's kind of related to who's strong and who's not, and we'll talk about this more in the macro game in a little bit, but understanding, like, does your team win team fighting? Does your team win split pushing? Is your team really good at assassinating people if you hide in bushes? Does your team take Baron and Dragon really well? Does your team siege very well? These are all different ways that you can win. And it's important to ask yourself that when you're making these kind of micro decisions and what you should be doing, like in individual team fights. So if your team is bad at team fighting, for example, and they engage on you, you know, you should be thinking, okay, we need to get out of here. My positioning needs to be very defensive. I need to be running because we can't beat them right now because they are way stronger than we are. So that should inform how you fight. Or if you are trying to siege a tower and your team has great poke and siege, but you're pretty weak at all in, where they have really good defensive stuff where you wouldn't want to dive. So if they have like a Thresh under their tower or a Jarvan or an Amumu or something like that, then you need to be thinking like, okay, I need to position outside of their engage range. We just need to poke and try to siege them. Right? Or if you have a really good split comp, and Riven is split pushing in a side lane, and she has to go through about 2 more waves, and then she's going to be on their base tower. And the enemy's posturing to engage on you around your base tower, then you need to be thinking, okay, we don't want to engage on them because Riven is creating all this extra pressure. We want to force somebody to go deal with her first. And so I need to position to be very defensive here because we don't have to fight. If we don't do anything, if we just stall them right here, then Riven's going to take those towers and take the inhibitor. Right? Whereas on the flip side, if you're engaging, if you're trying to siege a team and you see that they have a split pusher, their Fiora is about, 3 lanes away from being able to go and attack another tower, and you're thinking, well, there's no way anyone on our team can 1v1 that Fiora. She's so strong right now. She's 8-0. So we have to fight now. We have to engage because once she gets on that tower, we can either fight them now before she gets out on the tower, or we can wait until she takes our inhibitor and then fight her. Either way, she's going to teleport in. So we might as well go ahead and do it now so that we have a better chance, and at least we're not losing our inhibitor if we lose the fight. So it's just understanding sort of what the win conditions are, what's going on the map, understanding your macro, which once again will be another video that I'll make very shortly. And that informs your micro, so how you should fight in a particular fight, okay? And then also thinking about what's the enemy's conditions. This is something that I just mentioned before. So you want to help your team and hinder the enemy's team. So if you have a 3-0 Twitch and they have a 3-0 Kennen, you have to think, okay, how's this fight going to go down? You need to be thinking, what's the script? All right. So the script is Kennen's going to want to flash in and get Twitch, okay? Because they're going to know Twitch is powerful because he's 3-0. He's very strong. He's one of the only, worthwhile champions on your team, if you want to think of it that way. So he's going to try to flash and get the backline. So what you need to do, don't just start out that team fight and just kind of let things come to you. You need to be thinking, okay, Kennen, I'm watching Kennen right now. If I don't see Kennen, I'm going to ward until I find Kennen. So you need to tell your team to back up and chill until you get eyes on Kennen. Once you see Kennen, then you need to be thinking, okay, what am I going to do? What can I do when he comes at the Twitch? Okay, if I have Locket, I need to pop that. If I have Exhaust, I need to pop Exhaust. If I have anything that can displace him or knock him back, I need to do that. If I have anything that can shield or protect him, any abilities that I have, I need to be doing that. So you need to be thinking, okay, I'm going to use all of these resources to stop that Kennen from killing Twitch. That's the main goal. If I can just stop Kennen from killing Twitch, then we're going to win the fight. Okay, so exhaust, peel, shield, heal. No, it's not always going to be that simple. Sometimes it might be, well, okay, we have a fed Master Yi, and we have a fed Twitch. And so who do I protect? And, that could be tough. That's why there's not an exact science to this. But you should be thinking, okay, who's stronger? What's going to happen? Okay, so Master Yi is going to come around the flank and hit the backside, and they're going to try to dive our Twitch. So I can devote some of my resources to the Twitch, maybe my exhaust, and maybe a couple other things. And then I need to shift to help the Twitch on the backline, or to help the Master Yi on their backline. So maybe if I'm Rakan, and Kennen's going in, maybe I can just exhaust the Kennen, pop my Locket, possibly, I don't know, you could ult W onto him and then flash and run over and run across the rest of the enemy team with the rest of your W. And maybe just use both of your E shields on the Master Yi or something. So you can figure out how to divvy up your cooldowns. But you need to have something in mind. The main thing when you're trying to learn this is just to have a plan, okay? It may not be the best plan. You might make some mistakes executing that plan. Maybe it doesn't go down exactly as you think it should. Maybe Kennen flanks you and, your exhaust is not enough to save him, to save the Twitch, okay? Maybe Master Yi goes in early and just starts going Rambo 1v5. Maybe you have to change your game plan up. Maybe you have to go in to try to help him and just ult W onto him, and you might leave Twitch exposed on the backline, but maybe you think Master Yi is more important because if Twitch dies, that's okay, but if Master Yi kills their entire backline, their support, their AD carry, and their mage, then maybe it's worth it. So maybe you need to leave Twitch to die because he's constantly out of position and making mistakes. Maybe his itemization is really bad. You know, maybe he decided to rush Bloodthirster or something first item. Who knows? So, you know, you have to make these dynamic decisions. But the key thing is you need to understand like what you want to do and then like watch for that moment. So don't come in randomly, like, you know, just trying to respond to everything on the fly. You need to have a narrative in your mind. This is how it's going to go down, and this is what I'm going to do in every fight. Okay, so think of each team fight as a mission with a key objective. Like, okay, in this team fight, I'm going to do this. I'm going to protect Twitch. I'm going to follow Master Yi onto the back line. I'm going to engage and start this fight when we have 5 people ready, whatever it is. So typically there's like one key moment where the fight is won and lost. Either it's a really good engage that hits 3 people and you're just automatically going to win the team fight. Maybe it is stopping a priority engage by the enemy. So maybe it's Zach trying to fly through the air to engage and you knock him back with a flay or with a Janna Tornado or something like that. You need to try to identify what this moment is, what's going to be the key moment where the fight is won or lost, and then use most of your brain power trying to influence that moment. So trying to stop the enemy from doing what they need to do to win, and then trying to help your team do what they need to do to win, okay? So sometimes it's better to avoid team fights in favor of split pushing. I mentioned that a second ago, but we'll cover that more in a macro video. I want to try to make these guides like not super long, by my standards at least like an hour or less, okay? So that's number one, is understand the game state, know who's strong, know how you want to win, know what the enemy wants to do to win, know who's strong on their team, and then make your decisions and have some kind of plan ready for the fight, okay? Okay, so let's shift and talk about micro in terms of winning your lane. So you need to understand your matchup and play it accordingly. All right, I actually have a great example of this from a game I just played about an hour ago. We ended up winning, but it was very rocky early on. And the reason was the Tristana on my team did not understand matchups, okay? So we were Rakan Tristana against Sona Twitch. And the way that I was going in thinking about this, just to sort of use my practice, like what I just taught you guys, going into this, I was thinking like, okay, Ziggs is probably going to underperform. The guy doesn't have a lot of experience on Ziggs. I looked them all up beforehand. However, Riven's a one-trick Riven. High probability she's going to do well. She's against Jax. That's a very favorable matchup for Riven. Kayn is a really strong champion. This guy isn't quite a one-trick, but he has a lot of Kayn experience. He's going to outscale Rek'Sai. Ziggs should at least not get killed a lot in mid lane, so that we had that going for us, I thought. And bot lane is tough because Tristana scales really well, but so does Twitch. However, Sona is so oppressive early on that you really can't fight her because that heal is just so big. Unless you have enough damage to all-in burst her out, you can't fight Sona early on unless you have numbers. She's way too strong. And Twitch too. Like in a long fight with Twitch, like he's not renowned for his early game damage, but in a long fight where Sona can heal and exhaust and all that stuff, and Twitch gets to sit there and stack up his poison, he's actually pretty strong. So I ended up saying, you know what? I'm just going to concede this laning phase. We're just going to try to farm it out, do the best that we can, and I'm going to take Exhaust. And I'm going to take Exhaust because then I'll have an answer to Twitch later. I can exhaust him if I need to, because Rakan actually can get pretty close to Twitch, because you can, you know, ult him, knock him up with your W, and then when he lands, exhaust him. Or in case Jax gets really big. So I wanted to have the exhaust as insurance, and I just didn't think we were going to have enough power to take him out early. And Trist, after a little bit, kept pinging me, wanting me to go, like around level 3 or so, and we didn't have eyes on Rek'Sai. That'll be something I'll talk about in the macro video. But we didn't know where the jungler was. Trist is not going to have enough power to go in and kill him unless she jumps forward with her W, which is extremely dangerous if you don't know where the jungler is. And we just couldn't do it. So, you know, for a little bit, I was like, you know, I don't want to do this. Like, level 2 and 3, level 4, we caught eyes on Rek'Sai top lane, and I was like, okay, we can do it. So I go in, I knock up both Sona and Twitch. We start an all-in fight, and then, of course, I Q the Twitch, and then E back onto the Tristana, weave in some auto attacks, exhaust the Twitch, you know, all the standard stuff, fighting. I'm pretty sure Twitch, I think we had bot, and I think that Trist had a pickaxe, and I think that Twitch had boots too. I think. It may have been before anyone bought, but it was very early on. The items were roughly even, and we just got blown out, you know? She starts running away. She doesn't jump onto her. I don't think she lands on the Twitch. I think she jumps close, but she doesn't land on him. And she doesn't use her heal. Dies. And then I get out of there. I don't die. But they still have like over half of their health because Sona just gets to spam her W and it gives a shield and a heal, and it's huge. I mean, I have a dinky little heal, but not much. I have some shield, but not much. And so it's a bad matchup. And I knew it was a bad matchup, but I did it because this person just would not shut up about it. I was like, okay, well, we see Rek'Sai top lane, so let's go ahead and do this. And we got slaughtered. And then, of course, she has the audacity to blame me. She's like, why aren't you aggressive? Why can't... why are you even playing Rakan if you're not being aggressive? And I said, we lose this matchup or whatever. I tried to explain it to her rationally, and then she just kept raging. So I was like, okay, mute. But that's the thing, is that you need to understand matchups. You need to know when you can go in. And this person is not like a bad Tristana per se, right? She didn't buy any control wards. Whatever. She made a lot of mistakes. But statistically, she looks good. I mean, look at this. Like... she has a 78% overall win rate, right? And she has 82% as Tristana. So she's probably like 9-2 with Tristana, right? You got a lot of blue, so she wins a lot of games, right? Obviously a Smurf, doing very well. That doesn't mean that she knows how to micro, though, right? Because she doesn't know these matchups. If she thinks she can win that, she's mistaken, okay? And so this is not something that just affects people at lower elos, right? Like bronze, silver people don't know matchups. There are people that are high level. Like this person's probably at least a platinum, maybe even a diamond Smurf, and she doesn't know matchups. She's trying to force it because she's thinking in her mind, oh, okay, Rakan should be aggressive. You should initiate. You should fight all the time. But Rakan's damages are pretty low early on, especially if you don't take Ignite. And Tristana does not have a lot of power early on either. You know, she has to jump forward and fully stack her bomb to do damage, and they nerfed how much damage that bomb does. So she just doesn't really understand what's going on. And so I just wanted to highlight that even like good players, high statistical players, people from, you know, Platinum, Diamond, maybe Masters, you'd be hard pressed to find a Masters person that doesn't know matchups. But even in like low Diamond, Platinum, like people don't understand matchups. And so that gets me to my first point here. Don't force aggression if you are the losing lane. Just because you're a losing lane does not mean you're going to lose the game. Rakan still is excellent. As you saw, we won the game. Even though we lost lane, even though we lost that one fight, we lost in kills. We still did win the game. And she did okay as the game went on. She had alright CS, you know, compared to Twitch and whatever. Now, a lot of that was just chilling and just understanding, okay, Riven and Kayn have really good matchups. They're probably going to get pretty far ahead. And then I played around them in the mid game. I followed around Kayn. We made some picks on the Rek'Sai in their jungle. I warded. I went top lane. Riven and I got some kills. So I just started playing around these two, which we'll talk about in the macro, and just kind of let Triss do her thing after a little bit. But the key is, do not force it necessarily. Just because you think a matchup is supposed to go a certain way in the abstract, you need to understand, what does the enemy have? What are they doing? Who is their jungler? What's their jungler doing? That's coming in the macro video. But just don't try to force things into bad situations. So an example of this would be like Janna Ezreal into Draven Brand. Okay? If you're Janna, do not go up and try to auto attack Brand and Draven. Okay? I know all of the Mobile Fire guides and a lot of these, you know, YouTube videos you see out there are going to say things like, you have to be aggressive. You must fight tooth and nail in lane. You can't give them anything for free. You know, you got to fight them 24/7. False. False. Yes, if you're a winning matchup, yes, you should pressure. You know, it's debatable. You know, some people are of the opinion you always have to pick a winning lane. I don't think that's true necessarily, because I don't think Janna would be the number one support right now, number one ban, number one win rate in solo queue, if that was true, right? Because she has a terrible laning phase, notoriously. Janna's very bad in the lane. So why does everyone pick her? Because that's not everything, right? She scales really well into the mid and late game. She has good itemization, good synergy with all these key champions. Okay, it's good. So no one can argue that. I've been saying Janna's that strong for, you know, ever, since like patch 7.5. But you don't have to always be like pedal to the metal, like going as hard as you possibly can in a lane. And in fact, that's not just bad. Sometimes it's just ignorant and can lose you the game if you do that. So, but on the flip side, don't play passive if you do have a winning lane. So if you are Draven Zyra, don't just sit there and auto attack the creeps as Draven, and don't just like chill in a bush as Zyra. You need to be up there pressuring them, because Twitch and Lulu are probably going to outscale you. So you need to be up there auto-attacking, like hitting them with plants, just fighting them as much as you possibly can. That's something where you do fight them. But don't do it blindly. Understand the matchup. Understand when you can and when you should fight. So here are a few basic tips on how you can understand that a little bit better, all right? So if you have a healer and they don't, so that's primarily Soraka, Sona, Nami on this patch. Rakan heals, but not really. He has a really long cooldown on his Q, and you don't level it up because it's pretty bad to level that ability up. Okay? But if you have a healer and they don't, you should try for small trades to beat them out by attrition, especially if they don't have Doran's Shield. Now, sometimes if they have Doran's Shield, you can't do this trade. All right, so if they have like a Draven with Doran's Shield and a Zyra or a Braum or something like that, you can't really walk up that much and auto attack as Sona, especially when Draven gets a few extra attacks. You can try to throw some in there every now and then, but you're not going to be cutting through that Doran's Shield and his lifesteal off of Warlord's Bloodlust, most likely. So, you know, even though Sona should be aggressive and trading early, that's not the case always. But you should try to do that in most situations. So Sona Trist, you should actively try to trade auto attacks with Twitch Karma. Okay, because you have a heal and they don't. Karma can only heal herself, so if you stick a lot of damage on the Twitch, then he's going to get run out of the lane. So if you have a healer, try to force small fights. Not all in, but small fights, okay? On the other hand, if you have a powerful all in, you should avoid small trades until you're ready for a kill. So do not let that Sona just sit there and beat on you if you're Leona. Only let her hit you if you intend on going for the kill. So for example, if you're Draven and Leona, just hang back and wait until you get to level 3. That's Leona's big power spike when she gets all 3 of her Sunlight procs. You go in with your E, and then you hit them with your Q, and then your W is going to explode, and that's going to be 3 Sunlight procs, okay? So just wait. Know your power spike. Say, okay, level 3, we're going. Okay, if you're, you know, someone like Zyra, level 3, you're going. If you're someone like Branch, you might be able to go level 2. If you hit them with your W and then hit them with your Q, you might be able to all-in kill them with the stun. So it just depends on different matchups. Okay, Blitz, level 2, right? Notorious, very good level 2. Thresh, very good level 2. So just understand your power spikes, understand the matchups, and try to play to it accordingly. Don't try to go against the grain too much. Don't try to be super aggressive as Janna. Don't be super passive if you're Zyra, okay? Know what your champion should be doing and try to play that to the best of your ability, even though you might have to adjust, as I explained. Okay, so in general, the best time to trade with enemies is when they don't have their cooldowns. So you need to try to have some vague idea about the cooldowns of very popular lane opponents. So you need to know what Janna's cooldowns are. Like, you need to know that her shield is 10 seconds, right? You need to know that, I believe Sona's W early on is about 10 seconds or so. It's up a lot, but not as much as you would think early on. And I'm saying you should know it, and I don't know like the exact number on a champion that I play a ton. But yeah, it's 10 seconds. I do know it. I do know it. Level 1 is 10 seconds. It gets down to about 3.5. Blitzcrank Q, going to be about 20 seconds. Thresh Q, about 20 seconds, if they miss those. So if they miss it, depending on which kind of CDR they have and stuff like that, how they're itemizing, what their masteries and runes are and all that, you can expect to have about 15 seconds of free fire time. So if Blitz misses that hook, you need to get up in his face, even if you're like, you know, Janna or, you know, something else that should be scared. Try to get up and just hit them with attacks because they're not going to be able to hit you back because they don't have cooldowns. So if they use a very important cooldown, go fight them. If you see Ashe throw her arrow across the map, if you see Soraka use her ultimate in lane, go fight. Because they're not going to have a key ultimate. I know that sounds obvious, but I think so many people don't adjust their playstyle based on the cooldowns. Varus misses his ult, get him. You know? Sona misses her ult, go get her. So just understand that when they don't have cooldowns, then they're really easy to kill, potentially. They're a lot easier to kill than if they do have them. Their exhaust is down, their flash is down. Those are more that are, you know, pretty good signs you should try to fight. So you need to always know when their flash is down and communicate that to the jungler so the jungler can come and pick up that kill. Okay, so a great time for trading is when the AD carry tries to last hit. So when their AD carry is going for a last hit, first of all, they can't throw 2 auto attacks at once, right? So when they auto attack the creep, they can't auto attack you. So that's a great time to go in and do your trade. So hit them with the Sona plus Q auto. Sona auto Q. Nami W auto. Zyra, try to hit them with the rooting plant. That's another thing. It's not only can they not hit you, but you know where they're going to be. They have to stand still to fire an auto attack, at least for that little duration. So if you know they're going to walk up and hit that cannon minion, throw your skill shot at them. Throw your Nami bubble at them. Throw your Zyra E at them. Throw your blitz hook at them. Thresh hook. Like, you know where they're going to be. So now they have a choice. Either they don't go to that spot where they need to be to auto attack and they miss the creep, or they go there and they get hit by your skill shot. All right. Especially right now in a meta where things like Lucian, Ezreal, and Vayne aren't super popular bot lane. You see them sometimes, but they have really easy like dodges to, juke skill shots. Champions like Jinx, Twitch, Xayah early on, these champions don't have very good ways to dodge skill shots. So take advantage of that. When they're trying to go for a last hit, punish them. Hit them with an auto attack. Hit them with some abilities. Hit them with your crowd control. That's the best time to hit them because you know where they're going to be because they have to be there to last hit. All right. If you gain a lead, pressure hard. Zone the enemy away from CS if you can, but be careful that while you're zoning them, that the jungler doesn't come down and get you if you're being too aggressive. So we'll talk about that more in the macro vid. They'll come out soon. Manage the minion wave properly. So I'll talk about managing minion waves right here. I get a request for this all the time. I think someone may have donated for a video about managing minion waves as well. So this is this is your donation right here. So push the enemy into the tower if you're not scared of the jungler. So this is the best sort of default way, and just like 2v2 way to express domination is to push them into the tower because it's going to make them miss CS. It's hard to hit under tower. You're going to be able to poke them with lots of your skill shots and auto attacks because while they're so busy like freaking out trying to hit these CS under tower, you can hit them with all kinds of your abilities and skill shots and auto attacks, and they can't hit you back typically because they're so focused on trying to last hit minions because they're under tower. So it gives you, when a lane hits a tower, you're going to get like 10 seconds of basically just free fire time on them most of the time just to hit them with whatever you can. Another thing is this causes chip damage to the tower. So if you keep pushing them in a tower over and over again, those minions do damage to the tower. It may not seem like a lot at first, but over time, 4 or 5 waves hit that tower, it's going to start chipping down, and that's going to make it even easier. If they ever decide to back, you're going to take the tower from them, or if you ever kill them, you're going to take the tower. So you just keep the pressure on, and that's the best default way to be. Now, the problem with that, of course, is you open yourself up to getting attacked by the jungler, right? Or rotated on by a teleport from top lane or mid lane teleporting down or using some kind of mobility spell to get down there. Excuse me, like a Talia ultimate or something like that, or a Twisted Fate ultimate. So you have to understand, like, what's the threat level? Do you think people will actually come down here and kill you? And so you have to be very careful. But that is the best way to do it. Also, when they're pushing a tower like that, then that's going to give you time to go roam. And you could try to roam and make a kill middle, or you could at least just ward up the dragon or ward up the jungle. So that gives you the most ability to get out and get some deep wards in and potentially make moves on other parts of the map as well. So another option is freezing a wave. Now, let me show you what sort of freezing is here, just in terms of a map. So freezing a wave means that you pick where you want the minion wave to be. So it could be here. This is a really good defensive spot. This is where you would want to do most freezes, is right here, because the tower is going to back you up, so it's very close to you. And then you can walk up to like here. So if the minion wave's right here, you can walk up to right here if you're much stronger than they are and zone them off. So you can make sure they can't even walk up and hit them. If you're really far ahead, you might even be able to walk up and make sure they aren't even getting experience. If you have something like a Blitzcrank or a Thresh and you just stand here with your, Tristana that has 2 kills and they're down 30 CS and they're 0-2, they're going to get locked out of all that crowd control. And most people won't know what to do about that, so they're just going to stand there. Or they might try to come up and just get caught and killed. So the way that you properly deal with that, in professional play, you don't see that too often, but they would call down the jungler to come down and help them push that in the tower to reset the wave. But in solo queue, or they would call down the jungler to push it in and then bring their mid laner down to like dive you under that tower or something. But in solo queue, a lot of people won't know what to do. Like they'll just sit here and just lose experience and just rage at people on their team and just blame all their, you know, mistakes on their allies. It's pretty popular. So yeah, that's a great option. And this option is a bit different. So if you push up and you push them into tower, then you're getting all kinds of free skill shots as they attack under tower. And you're getting damage on the tower, but you're susceptible to getting ganked. If you freeze them out, so if you freeze the wave here, you're not going to be able to hit skill shots as easily because they're going to be sitting there watching for them. They're not going to be distracted last hitting, but they're also losing CS right here, and they're getting zoned off of experience, and you're a little bit safer because you're a lot closer to your tower. So this is kind of like the best of both. Well, it's not really the best of both worlds. It's a different kind of world. So you're not getting map advantage. You're not taking towers doing this, but you're zoning off CS. So this is a good place to be if you're afraid of their jungler. If their jungler's like a 3-0 Lee Sin or something like that, then maybe you're here because you want to deny CS, but you're afraid that if you go up too far, then the jungler might interfere, and you just want to let your lanes farm off a little bit more. Maybe your jungler's behind and they need to catch up and just farm a little bit more. Maybe your mid lane and your top lane are winning, and so you feel like you don't need to force it too much down here. That could be a good option, but just keep in mind that when you zone, you aren't creating pressure. Okay, they could easily just go roam middle if they want to try to make a play middle. They could go for dragon if they want to. They could do any number of things. So zoning them is good, but you have less map pressure. So if you have to go run out to go stop them at dragon, and then it breaks your freeze and it goes into your tower, then you're going to miss a lot of CS. So it's pretty advanced to decide when you want to freeze and when you don't want to freeze. Now, a good example, though, of when you want to do this, and it's really easy to understand how, is if your AD carry is really hurt and they need to back, and so they go ahead and back, and then the enemy decides to push the last wave, and you have one more wave that's sort of kind of coming up very soon. So, like, let's say that they kill the last wave here, and maybe there's like 5 enemy minions left, and your wave is right here, and their wave is right here. You can just stand here as a support, just face tank these minions for just a little bit. So just maybe take like 200 damage or so. Just make sure they don't come up and fight you. But if they don't come up and fight you, then those 5 minions are going to crash into these 6 new minions here. And then the other minions are going to come down and crash in like dogpile here. And so what that's going to do, and then you come back. And so what that does is the enemy team's going to have, 11 minions here, and you're going to have 6. And so it's going to be pushing towards you. So that means that the enemy is going to miss all 6 of these minions in terms of gold and experience. And by the time your AD carry walks all the way back, then it should be just about to hit the tower. So that means, in theory, that your AD carry is going to get that extra half a minion wave that they would have otherwise lost if you didn't freeze it there. That they would have otherwise lost, and they're going to have a chance to get a lot of that gold. And it's going to force the enemies, if they want to come up for anything, then they're going to have to move up here, which could potentially be a very unsafe position if your jungler's bot side and wants to gank. So that's a good time to freeze, is when you're going to back, especially if your AD carry backs before you and you're the support. Try to see if you can freeze. Now, if they come up and try to fight you while you're freezing, just do the best you can to stall it out. But you might have to leave, and it's just going to hit the tower anyways. But if you can get it to freeze here, that's great. And then also, whenever you back, he's going to be sitting here like either with it frozen. Tell them, keep it frozen if you back up, if it's not going to break before they get there. Or at the very least, they're going to be sitting here like last hitting under tower while you are, while you're back, right? So that's going to give them a nice safe spot to farm. Because one of the great problems is if you back when they back, so let's say they're really hurt and you're in good health, they've just been poked out a lot. If you back right now, when it's pushing in a tower, at the same time as your AD carry, then you're gonna miss all the experience and the CS down here, and then potentially, depending on how the wave works out, it might actually push into them. So if they go into tower, let's say that minion wave goes into the tower, and then these 6 minions come up here. Then this tower is going to keep hitting this minion wave, and let's say this new wave that comes up here, it's hard to show without actual minions, but let's say that there's 1.5 waves on this tower that the tower keeps killing, and then your wave here is stacked up. Well, now, after all of this is cleared up, essentially, let's say you have 4 more minions than they have. So when your new wave comes up, you're going to be +4 on the minion wave when their new wave comes up. If they want to, they can actually freeze you out. So when it hits the middle of the lane here, roughly, they have 4 more creeps. And so it's going to keep pushing towards them. Well, if you're behind or you're against a very dangerous lane, they can freeze you out now. So if they wait and just only last hit the minions, then it's going to be pushing towards them. And now they can freeze it right here. And if you're in the dangerous position, then you're not going to be able to go up and get any farm. So it can be really bad if you back at the same time as an injured AD carry, because you're going to miss experience, you're going to miss gold at the tower, and it has the potential to push the other way and give the enemy an opportunity to freeze. So it's much better to freeze it here yourself, just by sitting there and just face tanking some of the CS, wait on the next wave to show up. You back, your ally gets to catch all that stuff, and then get to farm here safely for free while you come back to them. Okay, so that's how a freeze is, and that's when you should freeze. So a good time to freeze, or to try to freeze kind of just outside your tower, is if you're in a losing lane and you need to farm safely, or if you're in a winning lane and you want to zone, but you're too scared of the jungler, or for some reason your other lanes are winning and you just don't want the lanes to break yet, then you cannot do it. Although I highly recommend not zoning in winning lanes unless you're scared of that jungler. So the problem is, and this is kind of a solo queue problem in general, is you're down here in bot lane and you're just setting up your beautiful freeze. You've got 2 kills on the enemy AD carry. You've got them frozen out here. And, you know, the enemy team, let's say that you are like Twitch Janna or something. You have them frozen out. You're like, oh, yes, we're going to deny them all this CS. And let's say they have like, I don't know, Leona Jhin or something like that. You've got them frozen out. All right. Well, now that Leona, because there's no pressure on her tower, she gets to go up here and roam middle and make a play on your Syndra middle and potentially kill her, right? Or now she gets to roam and like make some deep wards in your jungle so that Lee Sin can invade and steal red buff. Or maybe they get a pink ward around Dragon, deny you vision, and as soon as they see your jungler top lane, and they get to go down and get a free Dragon. And the problem is you're giving up all of your map pressure by doing that. And even in examples that aren't like that, like let's just say you're freezing, and even if the enemy just stands here and doesn't roam or do anything special, they just sit here and look at you. You know, what if your mid laner is down 3 kills in 20 CS? What if your top lane is down 0-2 and is raging at the jungler, like, someone come help me? You can't do anything while you're sitting here freezing. You're counting on your team to, like, manage the game properly, and that's usually a mistake. So that's why I don't advocate freezing. Now, the alternative would be, okay, you're ahead, keep pushing them into the tower. Tell your jungler, hey, come down here, we can dive them. Or even just like, hey, come down here and wait in this bush. We can counter gank when their Rek'Sai comes down here. So now you're actively pressuring this tower, you're dealing damage, you're going for that first tower blood. If you get first tower, then you usually get dragon as well. And after you kill that stuff, you can push the wave up to here and then go rotate middle, help him out. So now maybe, you know, he was down 0-2 in mid lane, but now the cavalry arrives. You show up with a 3-0 Twitch, and all of a sudden you can siege this tower down. So now that Fizz can't just 1v1 abuse the Syndra anymore, because you're just going to dogpile in mid lane, because their AD carry is going to be down here farming, and then, you know, you're going to have the rest of your squad up here. You're going to have 3 people in your top laner, and they're going to have their jungler and their mid laner. And you should be able to take them out, because they're going to be missing a person for bot lane. So that's what you want to do, ideally, is push, take objectives, and just end the game. Just get it over with. Take this, take Dragon, go take mid tower, go take Rift Herald. You know, go use Rift Herald, take top lane, take half of this tower, back up, go get the next Dragon. You know, all of that stuff. You need to just be like boom, 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 taking objectives. And we'll talk about that more at the macro game. But a lot of the macro starts with the micro, and that means you need to manage the wave properly. So if you're winning, the best course of action a lot of times is just try to break the lane, get out of there, and go use your strength elsewhere on the map. So the faster the game ends, the less likely your team is to throw it. The less likely someone is to rage out. The less likely someone is to just make any number of errors, right? Because there's just less time. There's less chance for mistakes. So, you know, why draw a game out by freezing? You know, why draw a game out to 30 minutes when you could have finished it in 25 if you just push your advantage a little bit harder? Take it on time here. Okay, we're getting to about an hour. Wish I brought some water with me. I'm getting a little, a little parched here, but we're almost done. Okay, so finally, dodging and hitting skill shots. I don't know why I said dodge. Dodging and hitting skill shots, okay? So the key to dodging skill shots is anticipation. This is something that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. You need to understand what's coming before it comes. So if a Blitzcrank's running at you, you know he's going to throw a hook. So you need to be sitting there with your mobility, like, ready to dodge that hook. It shouldn't be a surprise, right? If you see Thresh, like, posturing aggressively, you know he's going to throw a hook. So be ready for that. Okay, where am I going to flash? Where am I going to dodge? Like, which way am I going to walk? If you know they have a Kennen in a team fight, I guess Kennen doesn't really have a skill shot. If you see, like, a Syndra, you know she's going to try to stun somebody with one of her balls, so don't stand close to the balls. Try to think, you know, is anything where you know they're going to be throwing something that is a skill shot, then you need to be ready for it. So pros don't react really fast to these random events, right? That's not how they operate. They react so quickly because they expect it. They know Thresh is going to throw that hook. They know Orianna is going to try to use her ultimate there, right? As soon as she, like, throws her ball over there, they know she's going to ultimate. So they're just sitting there watching for that animation. And as soon as they see it, they're going to flash or dash. Or if the ball even gets close to them, they might go ahead and flash. And so it's not that they, like, have superhuman, like, they're just, like, la-di-da-di-da, you know, just, like, zoned out, listening to some music, and then all of a sudden, like, Orianna activates her ultimate, and they're like, and dodge it. That's not how it works. They're sitting there, they're, like, focused up, and they're just waiting on Orianna to use her ultimate, and then they dodge it, right? So it's really important to be focused, to watch and pay attention to who has skill shots, who has important abilities that they're going to use. That's how pros do it, is they pay attention. They do have really fast reflexes, but it's not like superhuman cat reflexes, right? It's because they expect it. They know that it might come there. I mean, sometimes they do have really fast reactions, but most of the time it's because they know what to look for and they're watching for it very carefully. Okay, so here are some best ways to dodge. So first of all, pick champions that have mobility. Obviously, you know, that sounds obvious for worse terminology there, but you know, pick champions that have mobility, right? Like, don't pick highly immobile, like, champions that can get picked off really easily. Now, sometimes I know, like, Sona and Soraka are very squishy, and, you know, they are immobile, right? I mean, part of why they are lower on my tier list is because Rakan is very mobile. He can dodge skill shots really easily with his W or his E. And then Janna is so fast that she can dodge them very easily with just her movement speed. So that's part of what makes them higher up the food chain right now. Now, Sona and Soraka have a ton of power to compensate for their lack of mobility. But, I mean, I guess Sona does have her E, but she's still usually a sitting duck for a lot of skill shots. But just have champions that have mobility. Doesn't mean you always have to have it, but it does mean that if you have an option between, okay, our team comp needs this type of champion, you know, we need to engage. So should I play Rakan or should I play Alistar, right? And you're thinking, okay, well, I need some kind of mobility so I can dodge their skill shots or just so I can get around the map, way I can get out if the fight turns south. So I think I'm going to go Rakan. So just if you have the option between champions you feel comfortable with that would, you know, meet a similar, like, role on your team, then pick something that has mobility so that you can dodge things better. Step 2, save your mobility to dodge things. I know these sound very obvious and redundant, but you would be surprised how often people goof this up, right? So a classic example is Tristana. Instead of saving that W to get out of trouble or to dodge a skill shot or whatever, a lot of Tristanas will use that W to jump in. And they'll get caught out and killed. Or Ezreal will E forward to try to get aggressive, and then Blitzcrank will come running out of a bush and hit him with a hook. So you need to save your mobility to dodge things whenever you can. Okay, now sometimes I realize if you're an engaged champion like a Rakan, yes, you're going to have to use your W to go in. But if you know there could be a skill shot champion around, don't use your mobility spell to... just willing. So a good example of this would be like Tom Kench as well. That's not mobility, but it's the way that you save allies is with your W's. That's kind of like a form of mobility, a form of get out of jail free card, a form of dealing with skill shots, right? So if you use your W to like eat a minion and wave, just to wave clear, and then all of a sudden, you know, Thresh shows up and hooks your AD carry and your W's on cooldown, well, they just died because you used your mobility spell on some other reason other than dodging a skill shot, essentially, or negating a skill shot in the terms of Tom Kench. So just make sure that you are saving your stuff. You're being relatively conservative with your mobility in order to dodge skill shots. Okay, a very common juke pattern is to juke backwards because most people will lead you slightly with a skill shot. Now, at the top end of pro play or something like that, you know, people might anticipate this, but for the most part, like the most standard juke of all time and the thing that works the best is just juke backwards. So let's say that Blitzcrank comes running in right here. You're right here, you're running away. You know he's probably going to throw his hook once he just kind of gets into range. So what you would do, as soon as you see him start that animation, just walk backwards. So instead of walking forwards more, just staying on your path, just cut backwards. You might even cut like back in this way. Just perpendicular to where he is. So if he's throwing his hook this way, the best way to juke would be this way. Yeah, usually like Nami throws a bubble or something at you, you know, you're getting ganked. Nami's right here, you're right here. Bubble's incoming, step back a little bit to dodge it, and then go forward. Because most people lead with the skill shots. They will throw it where they think you're going to be when it lands, obviously, and so you just cut backwards. So that's how most of the really like good dodges happen, is you dodge backwards. You run towards them. Or so like if you're afraid Nami's going to engage on you and she's right here and you're right here, then just run forwards a little bit, dodge your bubble, and then go backwards. All right. Do not walk near walls. What happens when you walk near a wall and there's a skill shot available is that it takes away many of your possible juke patterns. So, for example, if Blitz is like running in here, you need to try to stay like at least like here. Like do not walk along this wall. Because then you can't dodge this way at all. So he's going to know, oh, she's against the wall, so if I just like walk right here instead and throw it right here, then it's going to be extremely harder. Like if he just takes a couple more steps and goes right here and throws it at this angle, it's going to be much more difficult to dodge because there's such less surface area here to work with. This is something that I recommend when you're trying to hit skill shots, which we'll talk about here in a second, is to walk people into walls. So, for example, if you're Blitzcrank, open field right here, and there's a Lulu that's like right here, just run at her and force her to commit to one way or the other. If she's right here, she can juke either way. But if you just run straight at her and then force her to commit to like going down one of these little side walls, it makes it much easier to hit them. I mean, one of the best skill shots are often the ones you don't even take, you know? So like with Blitzcrank, you just run up, power fist them with your E, just knock them up, and then whenever they flash or whatever, then you hook them back in. So do not walk near walls. Do not walk into tight spaces. So, you know, don't walk near the tower here if you're trying to dodge people and you have an option of, you know, running into a tight space or not. So let's say Blitz is chasing you, right? Like you're right here, Blitz is right here. Like don't try to go down through here because this is a much tighter space than like right here. Right. So just try as best you can if you're like trying to juke a skill shot champion to stay out in the open and do not get near closed off spaces because that takes away angles where you could juke. makes your movements much more predictable. Okay, so the best way to hit skill shots. So practice the champion extensively. I can't stress this enough. You know, this is why it's important to have a small champion pool because you need to get used to the animations. You need to know exactly how long is that little delay when Thresh throws his hook, right? How long is the delay on Flay? Like, what's the hitbox like? You need to get to the point where you can smart cast all the abilities and know exactly how long it's going to take for them to travel and, like, what the hitbox is. Like, and you just have to see that. It's just something that comes with practice. Have to say, okay, if I throw this hook at this angle, it's going to hit him here. This is what the collision box looks like. So it's just, there's no other way to get around that other than just practice. You know, you can watch as many videos as you want where they're explaining how to land blitz hooks or thresh hooks or whatever, but you're just going to have to get it into your muscle memory and just your, I don't know what you would call it, your mind, right? You just get it ingrained in your mind exactly what that skill shot looks like, how fast it is, and what the hitbox is. And that just takes practice. So just make sure if you're playing a champion that has a lot of intense skill shots, like a Thresh or Blitzcrank primarily, then you want to practice that a lot. In normals or bot games or something, or the practice thing, before you take it in the ranked. Force the enemy close to a wall. I just mentioned that anytime you can walk them into a wall, it decreases the surface area where they can walk. So it means that it's going to be much easier to hit it because it's going to take off half of their options because the wall is going to cut off half of sort of their circle of movement. Force the enemy to use their mobility before you throw your skill at somebody. So I just mentioned this with Blitzcrank a second ago, but like if you're Blitz and you're walking down a Lulu or something mid lane right here, like don't just throw your hook right here to try to hit her. Run her all the way down and wait until she flashes first. After she flashes, then throw the hook at him. So sometimes you don't always have this luxury, but I think more times than people think you do have this luxury. So if you flay somebody, for example, as Thresh right here, try to walk them down, auto attack them a couple of times, and just see if you can get them to go ahead and blow their flash because they're scared, and then hit them with the hook. So that's a key thing. It's just wait until they do their mobility. Wait until Ezreal uses his E. Do not let him dodge your hook with an E. See if you can get him to use his E first, and then throw your hook after him. Use abilities from enemy blind spots. That could be bush. It could also just be terrain that they don't have warded very well. So this is one of the best things about skill shots is if they don't see it coming, it makes it really hard to dodge. So you can do this with vision. I do this all the time with Zyra. So a good spot for this is just setting up a pink right here in the mid game. After you crack bottom tower, you just hang out here. Someone will typically come to try to ward this, or they will walk through this area or this area. So you just have this pinked, and you just sit here with Zyra. And as soon as somebody tries to come up and ward or whatever, you just hit them with your plants, boom, blow them up. Done. Another example of this might be, let's say this tower's down and they're trying to siege your mid tower, just have a ward right here, just sit right here. And then whenever they all start to walk up here, just hit them with your Zyra plants or your Brand Ultimate or whatever, your Blitzcrank hook, just hit them over this wall, pull them in, boom, catch them. So this is not in a bush, technically, but it's in an area that hopefully you've swept that's clear, that's going to give you a nice clean shot in a place where you have vision. So there are a lot of places like that. I mean, it could be as simple as even like, you know, over here. This is another very common spot. Let's say you're sieging this tower, you have a pink ward here, so they can't ward this, and you're just sitting here as Blitzcrank. That's a huge amount of threat. So if anyone actually walks through here, you can just hook them over this wall if they're not paying attention. As long as you have a ward like right here. Or hook them over these walls. This is another common place. So you see this all the time, but actively try to look for places to go into blind spots if you have champions that have really powerful skill shots. So even if just like a team fight, like this tower's down, a team fight's breaking out here, your Blitzcrank, you might even just like run over here or Zyra and just kind of run out of vision a little bit and then try to hit them with some stuff. Just so they don't see it coming right here and just hit them with some stuff. So just try to get outside of their vision, whether it's in a bush or just a blind spot that they don't have covered. Get out of vision. It makes it a lot easier to hit your skill shots. Another one is wait until the enemy is distracted. So if you know a team fight's about to break out, you know your Sejuani is about to engage, don't throw the blitz hook yet, right? Just kind of hang out here, wait till Sejuani comes around flanks. Once she starts attacking and chasing people, then run up and try to throw your blitz hook. Because they're going to be so distracted by Sejuani in their face hitting them with stuff that they're not going to be paying as much attention to Blitzcrank when he throws that hook. So just wait until they're distracted. Wait until they're attacking somebody else. Wait until they've used their movement and they're trying to rotate and go a different way. Just wait until they're not paying attention to you and then hit them with the skill shot, if possible. I know sometimes, obviously, you just open field, you just have to try to start a fight with Blitzcrank because you might be the only initiation. But if you have the option, you should wait and then, wait till they're distracted and then go for it. And finally, if you have to shoot an open field shot and you're in vision, try to shoot it from a diagonal angle. I'm not sure about the exact math on this, but I can tell you that it does make it much easier to hit skill shots. So for example, if you're a Thresh and you're all just kind of like moseying around here in the middle and there's like a Jinx over here, try not to shoot the hook at her straight on like this. Try to see if you can get a position like here and throw the hook this way, because that's going to cover a greater surface area around their box. So if you think of like their hitbox as like an actual box, then you're going through the diagonals, which it's been so long since I've had math, I can't even remember what that's called. That would be like the longest leg of it, whatever. You have a better chance to hit them. Like I said, I don't know the exact math. I can't prove it, but I can just tell you from anecdotal experience, and I'm pretty sure I've heard this in various places as well, that if you can throw skill shots at a diagonal, then it's going to cover a greater surface area. I mean, that's not true if their hitbox is like a circle, but I think it's an actual box. And if it is a box and you throw it through the middle from corner to corner rather than side to side, it's going to cover a larger surface area. It's going to have a larger hypotenuse. Is that it? That's for triangles. But if it was split up into two triangles, that's what it would be. Okay, it'll have a larger hypotenuse. So yeah, so try throwing at angles. If you're something like a Thresh, you can look the other way too. You can do the no-look hook. So just try to like act like you're looking this way and then throw your hook that way. Thresh can throw hooks in directions that he's not looking. I don't think Blitz can do that. I think Blitz always faces up, but just try if you can to throw like Morgana Qs, Blitz hook, Thresh hook, Nautilus hook. There's any like Lux binds, anything that's a skill shot. See if you can throw it at an angle, and I'm pretty sure that you will end up hitting more of them over time. Whenever possible. I mean, sometimes you have to throw it straight on, but sometimes not. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's going to be it for this video. I was trying to keep it to about an hour, and we're pretty close. An hour and 10's all right, I guess. So yeah, we went ahead and covered micros. So we covered understanding game states, how that should affect your decision making. We talked about how to improve your laning phase, things like understanding matchups, understanding lane freezing and how you should manage your lane properly, and then dodging and hitting skill shots, some ways to improve that as well. So in the next video, I'm going to cover macro. So stay tuned for that. I should have it out within the next few days, hopefully. And that's going to be it. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.